Today we're joined by Sam, who's the Chief Operating Officer at SpiceJet, one of India's leading budget carriers. Sam, thank you for joining us at SimpliFlying. Tell us a little about your role at SpiceJet and what exactly you do.
I look after sales, marketing, route planning, and route strategies, and pricing and revenue management.
Okay, that's a lot of things. Now let's focus on the brand positioning part of it. What's SpiceJet's distinct brand positioning in the Indian low-cost carrier market?
If you were to get to the heart of it, no Indian carrier actually has a brand position. And that's an honest truth.
Okay.
And that's mainly driven by the fact that the business in India, especially the LCC business in India, is actually just 2.5, 3 years old.
Right.
At this point, most of the LCCs are very price driven in terms of
very price focused. Just have the price
focused, right? In terms of attracting more consumers and attracting more people to fly. And if you go back and look at even established players like Jet, is there from a consumer take point of view, is there a strong brand position that they have? They don't. Okay. And I'm talking very, I'm not talking about the baseline that they have in their advertising, or I'm talking in the consumer's mind.
Right.
All of them have certain, they probably are building on certain cues in the consumer's mind. For instance, Jet probably, through their advertising, through their product delivery, etc., cues in efficiency. Okay.
Or service.
Efficient service, right? Kingfisher cues in flamboyance. Air Deccan probably was the one which tried to take a strong brand position, make the common man fly, the common man's airline. And that's what they tried to do as a brand position. If you see any of the other airlines at this point of time, we are in the process of evolving and building those brand thoughts.
Right.
So just to take a cue, I think the consumer's take on SpiceJet through our research essentially cues into a lot of take on the name itself, Spice. Right? So Indianness comes through, fun, masti comes through, vibrancy comes through, right?
Okay.
And all of it is something that over the last 2-3 years we've not gone out and made a brand statement, but we have cued it in through the way we advertise, way we do various things as a part of our product offering. But we believe that the first 3 years would have been the wrong time to go out and make a brand statement, right? Sure, in the next year we will go out and do that, because I think we've now got we've got the scale, we've got probably a set of loyalists who are flying us.
Right.
We're very fairly clear about what we now can do with SpiceJet as a brand and SpiceJet as an airline. So over the next 12 months, you'll probably see that transition from a price-based selling LCC to a more
overall
the building blocks
value
of an airline, right? And that's typically how most airlines have evolved. Right? Most LCCs have evolved that way. After the first 3, 4, 5 years, that's when you start having those brand thoughts in place, saying, okay, now how do you make it all, put all of this together into, a consistent, coherent brand thought.
Right.
So at this point of time, what we have is the cues, which points us in some direction. Right. And we also know the cues that the consumers take from competitive brands. So we roughly know that competitive
what the
brands
landscape is.
What the cues that they are sending out, whether it is whether it's airlines like Indigo or Jetlight or Kingfisher right now, right? So to come back and answer your question, is there a specific brand thought? At this point of time, it's in the process of evolution.
Okay. And you mentioned a few things: vibrancy, Indianness, spiciness. How does all this translate into the actual flying experience? Are there different things that SpiceJet has done?
If you talk about vibrancy, if you talk about the color cues, etc., these are things that we've strongly interwoven into the look and feel of our aircraft. Okay, and that's the basic product experience. So if you enter a SpiceJet airplane with a nice bright SpiceJet logo or a Jetstream, etc., it is nice and bright and vibrant. And that could be the play of the colors, the play of the name, lots of stuff. We've tried to maintain that consistency across everything that we do in terms of communication. Right? So whether it is a press communication that we do, press advertising, we chose very consciously that the color cues a lot, so we will advertise only in color. Right? So we don't do black and white ads as a rule. Right? So, essentially, to get people to cue into that, the thought process. From a product delivery point of view, one of the other consumer takes is small overtones of efficiency, and how we try to cue it is just to ensure that we maintain on-time performance. It's something that we track, we monitor on a daily basis, we discuss in our weekly meetings. It's something that I think is now ingrained into the entire SpiceJet network.
Okay.
On an annualized basis, we run something like a 81 to 82, 83% on time.
That's very good for Indian carriers.
Given the Indian conditions, is good, but we would like to have many more of those 95% days. We do have 95, 97, 98% days, and we'd like to have more of them. And that's something from a product point of view, because a lot of it actually, a lot of the product delivery actually rubs off onto the service and the brand. Right. And that's something that we've always focused on to ensure that the consumer doesn't just think of SpiceJet as a cheap airline, right? But thinks of SpiceJet as an efficient airline that offers value for money.
Correct. Right? That's what the consumer is ultimately looking for.
Absolutely. And an efficient airline value for money is driven by 2 or 3 factors. It's driven by on-time performance. It's driven by your pricing. It's driven by what are the various promotions and activities that you do to get more people to fly, etc. Many of the promotions that we do are not typically price promotions. They will of course at heart be a price promotion, but from a communication point of view is never that way. Right? If I remember right, the last one that we ran last week was all about it's not lonely at the top anymore. Right? And the idea of the entire promotion was take a companion with you. Right. End of the day, at the heart, it is giving away a free ticket for every ticket that you buy. But our objective is not to queue in price, because the more you queue in price, the more you run the risk of being seen as just another cheap airline. So the other strong promotions that we've run are the ones that we run on Children's Day. It's something that we've now done successfully for the last 2 years, where on Children's Day, November 14th is Children's Day. On Children's Day, we do run a day-long or a 2-day-long promotion on booking, where any child who books, obviously any parent plus a child, a child can't travel alone. You can if you are an unaccompanied minor, and our promotion actually doesn't cover that. But any child who's booked on our flight for any day of travel that's open actually flies for free.
Okay.
And in this case, typically you used to a free and you say taxes and charges, etc. There's actually a free, as in only the 225 rupees that we pay to the government is what the child pays. No, the airline
no fare.
There's no fare. There's no fare, there's no charge, there's no nothing. And again, at heart, it's a price promotion, because the child is never going to fly alone. The child is going to go with, one mom or one dad, or maybe one child with 2 adults. So in order to cash in on this promotion, people will buy those 2 adult tickets at whatever fare exists. So a lot of our promotion design and communication on promotions are never, guys, $99. Sure, we've done that in the past. And sporadically and tactically you'll do that. But the most successful promotions that we've run are ones that never play on price. They play on, the value. End of the day, the consumer will say, what's in it for me?
Exactly.
And that value offering is what we play on. And that's something that we've done. And I guess these are the few things that we've done that, progress the basic thought of the spice, of the musty, of the fun, of the vibrancy. At the same time, operationally, to ensure that the efficiency part is something that we'll always work on.
Now, an interesting trend that has taken place in India with the emergence of these low-cost carriers, including SpiceJet, is there's a lot of first-time flyers. And these first-time flyers present different unique problems, like the guy trying to knock at the pilot's door and say land quickly when he's trying to circle the airport. How is marketing to first-time flyers different from marketing to frequent flyers?
First-time flyer, a person who's looking at shifting from, let's say, rail to air, is essentially going to shift it for only one reason. He's going to shift if he sees a huge value on the time, on time versus money. Right. And these are people who will value, at a 200, 300 rupee higher price, will probably prefer to go by rail rather than go by flight.
Right.
So getting the first time flyer to fly you is actually very easy.
Mm-hmm.
All you need to do is price it, run effective pricing promotions,
right?
And there you're not looking at competition along with other carriers or other low cost carriers. You're actually looking at what are the kind of fares that run on
trains,
on Rajdhanis and the Shatabdis and the other trains at the second AC level, and say, okay, is there something that you can do as a price promotion to do that? So the easy part of it is actually getting them to fly.
Right.
To be honest, the tough part is to get them to fly and make it profitable for the airline at the same time.
Exactly. So is such a low pricing sustainable?
It's not. But then typically, historically, that no airline ever runs 100% on every flight day on day.
Right.
So if it makes sense from a pure revenue management point of view to say, okay, listen, I think this flight will probably be roughly 90% across the month, across the year. There are some weekdays, few stays probably weeks. So you actually ensure that you just have limited seat promotions.
Right.
Typically, you don't do promotions that are network wide, inventory wide.
Yeah.
Right? So you play with the amount of inventory that you would like to put out and get and entice these people to fly. So that's an easy part. The tougher one is probably the expectations of what they expect from an airline, and that's I think consumer behavior over a period of time takes care of it.
Right.
As an airline, there's only that much you can do.
Right. Now, which are some of the key channels that SpiceJet uses to get in touch with these first-time flyers as well as normal regular customers?
Key channels of communication.
Communication as well as sales and bookings and things like that.
Okay. From a communication point of view, we extensively use press, as in newspapers.
Right.
We use it in two ways. We use it to advertise, and we use it for PR. That's what Deepa does.
Right.
And the amount of I think we constantly track how often SpiceJet's talked about positively and things like that. So one is press.
Right.
The second is second way we reach out, especially to people who have flown. Okay, is through a constant communication process. We do have a database of people who've flown us in the past, people who enrolled that they wouldn't like to hear updates about SpiceJet. Right. So email marketing is a very large part of our entire marketing mix. SMS marketing is a large part of our marketing mix.
Right.
Yeah, and then the rest of the media mix is outdoors and
the traditional
media mixes. Right. And of course, using internet, whether it's Google's AdWords search or advertising on the internet is the other medium. So these are the basic ways that you reach out to them. In terms of channel of distribution, roughly about at this point of time 35% of our business comes from brick and mortar travel agents.
Okay.
And these are the typical IATA, non-IATA travel agents that exist across the country.
Right.
The balance 65% is the largest one is direct to consumer, right? Which is
from your own website,
which is SpiceJet.com or through our key partners like Make My Trip, Yatra, Clear Trip.
Okay.
Right. They are
so online travel
agencies. So online bookings are roughly about 50% of our bookings.
Okay.
And so that 50 and 35 make 85. The balance 15% is through the contact center, the call center, the airports.
Right. Through the call-ins. How do you think strong brand and a strong airline brand can soften the impact of the downturn on airlines? Do you think that's...
To my mind, it's probably the most important. Most people in the airline business, have this view that the brand is not important, but the fact is that the brand is what gets people in,
right?
And the brand is what helps keep people sticky,
right?
Now, I'm sure you would have heard this thing that it costs 10 times as much to get a new consumer than get somebody a repeat.
Right.
I think that's more true in the aviation business than anywhere else.
Right.
So it's important to ensure that that the brand, that there is a brand reason why the people fly, right? And people come back and fly, right? So of course the difference is that in an FMCG product you can taste it, you can feel it.
Right.
Here a lot of the inputs into the brand are actually touchy-feely.
Right.
It's a lot of service. It's a lot of
Word
service
of
delivery.
mouth,
it's about how how their experience was. It's all about the passenger experience, right? So, and at least our view is that in the long run, if you have ceteris paribus, same price, if we can get a consumer to opt for SpiceJet versus my closest competitor, that's going to help us stay ahead of the game.
Certainly.
Right? And there's a lot of brand work that is going on. We of course are in the middle of a brand research in terms of trying to find out what consumers feel about our brand, what are the things that we need to improve, what are the things that we do well. So it's a constant game of evaluating what you're doing, going back, rejigging our internal processes, then going back and again asking the consumer, is it better now?
Right.
So it's a constantly moving dashboard of what the consumer feels.
Right. Now, something that I've noticed in the US for the low cost sector, or for that matter, all airlines in the US seem to be in the transport business. They'd rather transport one passenger from one point to the other, and that's how their business model works. Do you think in India airlines are more in the transport business or more in the service business, like the hotel or travel industry?
At this point of time, if you ask me, it's somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
You have some of the established airlines, probably not some. There's probably Jet Airways, which is somewhere in the middle in the service business. Most of the others, because it's just 2 or 3 years into the business, that the first thing that you'd like to get right is the operational logistics of the business, right? So most of us are in the transportation business and trying to find a way into the
service,
building that service business part of it. The fact is that in a transportation business, service is an inherent part. Right? It goes hand in hand, especially in a product like ours, where it's not just transportation. Being on time is not good enough.
Right.
The consumer expects something more.
Right.
But in the long run, it'll not be. At heart, the business will be transportation, right? But externally to the consumer, the business will never be transportation. Right. There's always a big R associated with air travel, the romance of air travel.
Exactly.
Which maybe in the last few years, with all these glitches, infrastructure, etc., probably is vanished.
Right.
I'm sure at some point of time, that's what the consumers look for. There will always be the adrenaline rush when you're catching a flight, how many flights you've taken. There's always something that you expect and look forward to. And I think in India is probably a little bit more of an emotional country than the US is.
Very much more.
Running a very efficient transportation business is core, right? But like I said, our endeavor is not just to do that, right? Having done that, now what's the consumer face of that business? The consumer face of the business will have to be emotional. There has to be an emotional reason why somebody will fly SpiceJet vis-a-vis Indian Airlines or Jet Airways or Kingfisher or Indigo or whoever. Right? There has to be an emotional reason.
Certainly. And what's one of these emotional reasons that SpiceJet offers its customers or is looking to in a present continuous tense?
I think the single biggest consumer insight that we've gathered is warmth. Okay, and that to my mind is I'm not saying that's exactly what we will do, but it's one of the things that we are looking at, trying to get into the entire
service delivery and across.
How do you build warmth into the entire process? Obviously, warmth will start from internal to the organization, right? So how do you build warmth into the entire thing that it then goes and hits the consumer and then say, hey, I felt very nice about flying that flight. Sure, I also saved money. Right. But I felt nice about it. So the entire idea as a thought would be, how do you internally and internalize the warmth, and how do you deliver it, and how do you then get the brand to speak about it?
Right. That's right. Now, earlier you just mentioned infrastructure in India. Is that an opportunity or is that a challenge for SpiceJet's growth?
Actually, I think we make too much of this infrastructure thing. Sure, airports are busy, congested, blah blah blah. But if we, in spite of the infrastructure, if we are able to do an 82% on-time performance, I think probably people are blowing it out of proportion. Sure, things have been better in the last few months. Things with the new terminals in Delhi coming up, new runways, swanking airports in Bangalore, Hyderabad. I think things will be world class, and things will approach being world class. And I think we'll probably, as an aviation business surprise the world. You know, it's a great opportunity. The way we see it in SpiceJet is that along with all of these infrastructure developments, how can you constantly keep changing and ensure that your product becomes better and
adapting,
better and better, right? And how do you build, like what we all the things that we've talked about, how do you build all of those elements into the brand, into brand SpiceJet?
Right. Now, SpiceJet is regarded as one of the best run carriers, best managed carriers in India. What puts SpiceJet in such a strong position? Is it the team? Is it the management? Is it the operations? Or something else?
To my mind, the key pillar in any organization is the people. It's important to have good people.
Right.
It's important to ensure that while you have systems and processes, there are enough, let's say, flexibility that people are allowed. Right? Whether it is a check-in person saying, okay, I'm okay with 1 kg excess baggage.
Right.
Sure, I've seen you often. Go through.
Right.
Whatever. So building that flexibility, into the entire organization is important.
Right.
And I think we're probably very inclusive in terms of discussions. We're probably the only airline that is not run by an investor. Right. We are a much more professionally run organization than any of the other competitors of ours. Everybody has an investor who runs the airline.
Right.
Probably that's helped, and the fact that obviously then everybody is cued in as an organization to the what we need to achieve.
Everyone has a stake in the game.
Absolutely.
Right.
Of course, stake in the game reminds me that our employees actually participate. There is a strong ESOP program that runs, etc. And I guess all of that together is what has gone to do that. I think it was large part of it is also the fact that we set up shop at the time that Indian economy also was growing at that pace. So timing of our markets, timing of when we started flying, timing of when we started ramping up capacity, all of that. It's a play of a lot of things. It's difficult to put my finger and say, okay, it's one specific thing that's caused that. Clearly, I think the large part of the success is basically our focus on being efficient, operationally efficient. Right. So whether it was ensuring the airplanes the assets are utilized to the maximum.
Right. The turnaround.
Ensure that the turnarounds are quick. Ensure that our costs are always under control and constantly look at working on ways of reducing costs.
Right.
We started our fuel conservation program close to about 2 years back, and we have some pretty interesting fuel consumption per block hour numbers. We believe it's probably better than the best in the industry.
Okay.
So it's a lot of operational focus on cost that's ensured that even in bad times we're able to hold things together.
Okay. Now going on to the Indian aviation industry, do you see more consolidation happening in the coming year?
Honestly, personally speaking, I don't think so. I think we now have 3 large airline groups, which is the Indian, the Jetline, and Kingfisher Red.
Right.
And you have 2 LCCs, Indian, Indigo and SpiceJet.
Right.
Add in 1 regional player, Paramount, and add in a Go Air.
Right.
I think the market in India is large enough to take this. I don't think there's a need for any consolidation. If at all, there's probably a need for rationalization of capacity. And rationalization of capacity by the full service carriers rather than
because you are exploring new markets.
Yeah, rather than SpiceJet. So it's probably a rationalization of capacity game in the next 12 months rather than any more. I think the consolidation that had to happen has happened.
Okay. What about some sort of an alliance between the low cost carriers?
Oh, there are always opportunities for us to speak to each other and ensure that costs are costs are under control. There are lots of areas where we do collaborate, whether it is, what happens when you have disruptions in your flights due to technical reasons. Can you, carry each other's passengers? Can you help each other in terms of spares, in terms of equipment, and things like that. So there are lots of areas where we do collaborate with our competitors. And that will continue. I think in this business, that's
you need to co-opetition of sorts.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And what role do you see foreign carriers playing in the Indian market?
See, that's regulated.
Right.
As per regulation, no foreign carrier can invest in an Indian carrier. Right. If that scenario continues, I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think. Is there a need for a foreign player to come into India and invest in an Indian carrier? I don't see the need. Right. India has proved that it can, without the need for having foreign investment or foreign airline investment, deliver world-class products. Take, while they are one of my competitors, take Jet Airways international product. It's probably one of the best in the world.
That's,
right?
yep.
You don't need Emirates or somebody else to come and teach us how to deliver good product and good service. I think we can do it ourselves.
Right.
So to that extent, I actually don't see a need or a value for any foreign airline to come and participate in the Indian aviation business.
What's the most exciting things in the works for SpiceJet right now for 2009?
From a consumer point of view, I think what we are working on is how can we constantly keep changing what the consumer sees and touches and feels about our brand. Whether it is the in-flight experience, whether it is something as frivolous as the food that we serve and he buys.
Not frivolous at all.
We're constantly looking at how we can keep changing this so that people do get used to something and they would like to see something different.
Right.
So we'd like to working on how we can constantly up the service offering, add more spice to people's journeys.
Airlines in India in 2009. Where do you see that heading?
I think it'll be a year where people will consolidate their own operations. I think it's not going to be a year of hectic expansion. I don't see too many new planes coming into India, and if they are, they're probably going to replace the older ones.
Right.
From a consumer point of view, I see travel becoming a little bit more cost conscious.
More cost conscious or more value driven?
More cost conscious.
Okay.
And that's mainly because corporates, which are a large chunk of people who fly, are going to be looking at cutting down.
So that's good news for SpiceJet.
And that's good news for carriers like us.
Right.
We've of course we've gone and committed more capacity in the last month. We've added something like about 20 odd new flights. And we believe that I think this year is going to be it's going to be a tough challenge for the industry.
Yeah.
We're not going to see passenger numbers grow as fast as they've grown in the past.
Right, certainly.
But I think at SpiceJet we are confident that we will see a lot more share of traffic that comes to us from the full service carriers.
Right, certainly.
We are pretty confident that we'll also be able to meet our goals of being break even. I think that we are fairly optimistic actually.
Okay.
So while there's gloom and doom that everybody paints, I think we are fairly optimistic about what this year holds for us. Of course, optimistic, but at the same time we know that we have to do a lot of stuff internally to get that all working together.
Right. What are some of the things that you are personally looking forward to?
What I'm looking forward to is taking this entire consumer insight into the brand communication and the brand thought, and starting the process of building SpiceJet as a brand.
Okay.
That's something that we are going to embark on as we speak.
Okay.
To my mind, that's going to be the most interesting and challenging.
Nice.
The second and more interesting and challenging is in these. How can we get people to continue to fly?
Right.
And how interesting can you make your offerings to them? How interesting can you make ideas and promotions come alive? I think these are two interesting things. I've had several interesting ideas that